Understanding what is within your control and what is not is the foundation of happiness and freedom. Everything begins with a clear grasp of one essential principle. Some things are under our control, while others are not. Only after fully embracing this fundamental truth and learning to differentiate between what we can influence and what lies beyond our reach, can we achieve inner peace and effectiveness in the external world. Under our control are our opinions, aspirations, desires, and the things we reject. These elements essentially define our concerns, as they are directly shaped by our choices. We always have the ability to determine the contents and nature of our inner life. Beyond our control, however, are aspects such as the body we were born with, whether we inherited wealth or need to earn it, how others perceive us, and our social status. These external circumstances do not belong to us, nor should they be our focus. Attempting to control or change what is beyond our power leads only to frustration and distress. We must remember that the things under our control are naturally available to us, unrestricted and free from external limitations. However, those beyond our influence are subject to weakness, dependence, or the whims and actions of others. If we mistakenly believe we can govern matters that, by nature, lie outside our control, or if we take on responsibilities that do not belong to us, our efforts will be wasted, and we will become frustrated, anxious, and resentful. Focus on what is truly yours. Pay attention solely to your genuine responsibilities, and acknowledge that what belongs to others is their concern, not yours. By doing so, you will be immune to coercion, and no one will be able to restrain you. You will attain true freedom and effectiveness, directing your energy toward meaningful pursuits instead of wasting it on criticism or opposition. If you understand and focus on what truly matters, nothing and no one will force you to act against your will. Others will not be able to harm you, you will not create enemies, and you will not suffer unnecessarily. If your goal is to live by these principles, remember that the path will not be easy. You must be willing to give up certain things entirely and delay others for the time being. It is likely that you will have to forego wealth and power if you genuinely wish to secure happiness and freedom. Recognize mere appearances for what they are. From now on, practice telling yourself, this is just an illusion, not reality as it seems. Then carefully examine the matter in light of the principles we have discussed. First, ask yourself, does this concern something within my control, or is it beyond my reach? If it pertains to anything outside your influence, train yourself to let it go. Desire demands fulfillment. Our desires and aversions act as demanding rulers, constantly seeking satisfaction. Desire urges us to chase what we crave, while aversion insists we avoid what we dislike. It is common to feel disappointed when we do not get what we want, and we set ourselves up for trouble when we focus on avoiding what we don't want. However, if you simply steer clear of things that harm your well-being and are within your control, you'll never end up in situations you truly don't want. On the other hand, if you try to avoid inevitable realities like illness, death, or misfortune, things beyond your control, you and those around you will only suffer. Desire and aversion, while powerful, are just habits, and we can train ourselves to develop better ones. Stop the habit of feeling rejected by things outside your control, and instead focus on eliminating harmful things that you can change. Do everything in your power to rein in desire, because if you chase something beyond your control, disappointment is almost guaranteed. By neglecting the things within your control that truly deserve your desire, you're missing the point. Of course, there are times when we need to pursue certain things for practical reasons and adjust others, but we should do so with grace, discernment, and flexibility. Let's face it, things don't happen to meet our expectations. Events unfold on their own, and people behave as they are. Embrace what you actually get. Open your eyes. You must see things for what they really are. This way, you'll save yourself from false attachments and avoidable disappointment. Think about what truly brings you joy, the tools you have, the people you care about. But remember, they have their own specific nature, which has little to do with the way we see them. As an exercise, think about the most insignificant thing you feel attached to. For example, maybe you have a favorite cup. After all, it's just a cup. If it breaks, you can handle it. Now think about something or someone you feel deeply attached to. For instance, when you hug your child or your spouse, remember you're embracing a mortal being. So, if one of them were to pass away, could you face it with strength? When something happens, all you can control is how you respond to it. You can either accept it or take it badly. What truly frightens and discourages us isn't the external events themselves, but the way we think about them. It's not things that upset us, it's our interpretation of their meaning. Stop frightening yourself with impulsive ideas about how things should be. Things and people are not what we wish them to be, nor are they what they seem. They simply are what they are. Align your actions with life as it really is. Don't try to set your own rules. Always act in every situation, whether big or small, public or private, in harmony with the laws of nature. The harmony between your will and nature should be your ultimate ideal. Where should you practice this ideal? In the details of daily life, personal tasks and duties. When you take a bath, do it as best you can, in harmony with nature. When you eat, do so in harmony with nature, and so on. It's not so much about what you're doing, but how you're doing it. If we truly understand this principle and live according to it, even if difficulties arise, because they are part of the divine order, inner peace will remain possible. Events don't harm us, but our perspective of them can. Things by themselves don't harm or hinder us, nor do other people. How we view things is another matter. It's our attitudes and reactions that create problems for us. Therefore, even death isn't significant on its own. It's our concept of death, our idea of it, that's terrifying. There are many different ways to think about death. So, examine your beliefs about death and everything else. Are they truly true? Do they benefit you? Don't fear death or pain. Fear the fear of death and pain. We can't choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how to react to them. Neither shame nor guilt. If what we feel about things is what torments us more than the things themselves, it's illogical. When we face a setback, inconvenience, or distress, we should not blame others, but rather reflect on our own attitude. Small-minded people often blame others for their misfortune, while most people tend to blame themselves. Those who dedicate themselves to a life of wisdom understand that the impulse to blame something or someone is foolish. Nothing is gained by blaming, whether it's others or ourselves. One of the signs of moral progress is the gradual elimination of blame. We see the futility of accusations. The more we examine our attitudes and work on ourselves, the less likely we are to be swept away by emotional reactions, searching for easy explanations for random events. Things are simply what they are, and others can think whatever they want. That's not our concern. Neither shame nor guilt. Build your own merit. Never rely on others' admiration. It's of no value. Personal merit cannot come from external sources. You won't find it in relationships or in others' judgments. It's proven that people, even those who love you, won't always agree with your ideas, understand you, or share your enthusiasm. Grow up. Who cares what others think of you? Build your own merit. Personal merit cannot be achieved through relationships with highly excellent people. You've been entrusted with a task that you must carry out. Get to work. Do your best and disregard anyone who might be watching. Do meaningful work while remaining indifferent to any praise or admiration your efforts may bring. External merit doesn't exist. The successes and excellences of others belong only to them. Similarly, your possessions may be great, but they won't make you excellent. Think about it. What is truly yours? The way you use the ideas, resources, and opportunities you have is what defines you. You have books. Read them, learn from them, and apply their wisdom. You have specialized knowledge. Use it thoroughly and wisely. You have tools. Take them out of the box and build or repair things. You have a good idea. Delve deeper into it and execute it. Make the most of what you have, what is truly yours. You can feel reasonably content with yourself if you align your actions with nature, recognizing what truly belongs to you. Focus on your main duty. There's a time and place for fun and entertainment, but you should never let them overshadow your true purposes. If you're on a journey and the ship anchors in a port, you can go ashore looking for shells or plants. But be careful. Stay alert to the captain's call. Pay attention to the ship. Getting distracted by trivial things is the easiest thing in the world. As soon as the captain calls you back aboard, be ready to leave those distractions behind and come promptly, without even looking back. If you're older, don't stray too far from the ship, or you might not make it back in time when you're called. Accept events as they come. Don't expect things to happen the way you want them to. Accept them for what they are. By doing this, you'll find peace. Your will is always under your control. Nothing truly holds you back because your will is always in your hands. Illness can challenge your body, but are you just a body? Lameness may affect your legs, but you're not just your legs. Your will is greater than your legs. Your will doesn't have to be affected by any incident unless you allow it. Remember this whenever something happens to you. Fully embrace what happens to you. Every difficulty we encounter in life offers us the opportunity to turn inward and call upon our inner resources. The challenges we face can and should reveal our strength. Wise people look beyond the incident and try to make a habit of benefiting from accidental events. Don't just react to events as they happen. Remember, you must turn inward and ask yourself what resources you have to face them. Dig deep. You have strengths that you may not even know exist. Find the right force and use it. If you encounter an attractive person, self-control will be the necessary resource. If you're facing pain or weakness, endurance is the key. When facing insults, patience is key. As time passes and you develop the habit of matching the most appropriate internal resource to each situation, you'll stop being swayed by life's appearances. Focus on what you have. There's nothing to lose. In truth, nothing can truly be taken from us. There is nothing to lose. Inner peace begins when we stop saying, "I've lost this or that," and instead say, "It has returned to where it came from." Has your child passed away? They have returned to where they came from. Have possessions and property been taken from you? They too have returned to where they came from. Perhaps you're angry because someone wrongfully took your belongings. But why should it matter who returns your things to the world that gave them to you? The important thing is to take good care of what you have while the world allows you to keep it, like a traveler tending to his room in an inn. The good life is one of inner serenity. The clearest sign of a higher life is serenity. Moral progress results in freeing oneself from inner confusion. You can stop worrying about this or that. If you seek a higher life, avoid thinking in the usual patterns. If I don't work harder, I'll never make a good living. Or, no one will pay attention to me, I'll be a nobody. Or, if I don't criticize my boss, he'll take advantage of my goodwill. It's far better to die free from regrets and fears than to live in abundance, constantly haunted by worry, fear, jealousy, and unrestrained desire. Start a program of self-control, but begin with the little things that bother you. If your child spills something or you can't find your wallet, tell yourself, "I'll handle this calmly." It's the price I pay for inner serenity. No one gets something for nothing. When you call your child, be prepared for them not to respond. And if they do, they may not do what you ask. In that case, your anxiety won't help them at all. Your child should not have the power to disturb you. Don't concern yourself with things that don't involve you. Spiritual progress requires focusing on the essentials and ignoring the trivialities that don't deserve our attention. It's actually a good thing if others see you as naive when it comes to things that don't concern you. Don't worry about the impression you make on others. They're often dazzled and deceived by appearances. Be true to your purpose. Why? Only then will you strengthen your will and give coherence to your life. Stop trying to win the approval and admiration of others. Your path is higher. Don't long for people to see you as sophisticated, unique, or wise. In fact, be wary when others view you as special. Guard against arrogance and vanity. Keeping your will in harmony with truth while worrying about things beyond your control are actions that exclude each other. When you're absorbed in one, you neglect the other. Align your desires and expectations with reality. For better or worse, life and nature follow laws that we can't change. The sooner you accept this, the more at peace you'll be. You'd be foolish to wish that your children or spouse lived forever. They are mortal, just like you, and the law of mortality is completely beyond your control. Likewise, it's foolish to wish that a boss, relative, or friend had no flaws. That would mean controlling things we can't. What is under our control is how we respond to disappointment. If we don't address it in line with the facts, we're controlled by it. If what you seek is freedom, don't desire or avoid anything that depends on others, or you'll always be a powerless slave. Understand what true freedom is and how to achieve it. Freedom isn't the right or ability to do whatever you please. Freedom comes from understanding the limits of your own power and the natural limits set by divine providence. By accepting life's limitations and inevitabilities and working with them instead of fighting against them, we become free. If, on the other hand, we succumb to fleeting desires for things beyond our control, we lose our freedom. Take life as if it were a banquet. Think of life as a banquet where you act courteously when the trays are passed around. Reach out and take a modest portion. If a dish passes you by, enjoy what's on your plate. If a delicacy hasn't been offered yet, wait patiently for your turn. Maintain the same attitude of polite moderation and gratitude with your children, spouse, career, and finances. There's no need to yearn, envy, or claim anything. You'll get the right portion when the time comes. The lives of Diogenes and Heraclitus were perfect examples of following these principles. Strive to follow their valuable example and avoid adopting viewpoints. The negative views and problems of others can be contagious. Don't sabotage yourself by unconsciously adopting negative and unproductive attitudes from your interactions with others. If you encounter a discouraged friend, a troubled relative, or a colleague who's faced a misfortune, try not to be overwhelmed by their apparent misfortune. Remember to distinguish between the event itself and the interpretation of it. Remind yourself that what hurts this person is not the event itself, because someone else might not feel oppressed by the same situation. What's actually harming them is the response they've adopted without critical thinking. Encouraging stubborn negative feelings doesn't show kindness or friendship toward those we care about. We'll be much more helpful to others and ourselves if we remain detached and avoid melodramatic reactions. However, if you're talking to someone who's feeling down, hurt, or frustrated, show kindness and listen with compassion, but don't let it bring you down too. Always play the role that's been assigned to you. We are like actors in a play. Divine will has assigned us roles in life without asking for our opinion. Some of us will play a short drama, others a long one. We may be assigned the role of a poor person, an invalid, a distinguished celebrity, or an ordinary citizen. While we can't control the role we're given, our goal should be to play it as best as we can and refrain from complaining about it, no matter where we are or what the circumstances are. Give a flawless performance. If you need to read, read. If you need to write, write. Everything happens for a good reason. Show me what you think and I'll tell you who you are. Avoid superstitions that lead you to give events powers or meanings they don't have. Don't lose your mind. Our busy minds are always drawing conclusions and interpreting signs that don't exist. Instead, think that everything that happens to you happens for some good. If you've decided to be happy, then you are happy. Every event has some benefit for you, you just need to look for it. Happiness can only be found within. Freedom is the only goal worth pursuing in life. It's achieved by letting go of things that are beyond our control. We can't have a joyful heart if our minds are full of fear and ambition. Want to be invincible? Then don't fight over things you can't really control. Happiness depends on 3 things, and all of them are within your control: your will, your ideas about the events you're involved in, and how you use those ideas. True happiness is always independent of external circumstances. Practice indifference to external circumstances. Happiness can only be found within. How easily we are dazzled and deceived by eloquence, titles, honors, possessions, fancy clothes, or a friendly demeanor. Don't make the mistake of assuming that celebrities, public figures, political leaders, the rich, or those with great intellectual or artistic talents are necessarily happy. Doing so means you're getting lost in appearances, and it will only make you doubt yourself. Remember, the true essence of goodness is only found in things within your control. If you don't forget this, you won't find yourself falsely feeling envy or despair, comparing your achievements with those of others. Stop aspiring to be someone else, because that's within your control. No one can harm you. People don't have the ability to harm you. Even if they insult you, shout at you, or hit you, it's your decision to consider whether what's happening is insulting. When someone irritates you, the only thing that's irritating you is your own response. Therefore, when it feels like someone is provoking you, remember that it's your own judgment of the situation that's provoking you. Don't let your emotions flare up based on mere appearances. Try not to react instantly. Take a step back to gain a broader perspective. Calm down. Spiritual progress involves facing death and misfortunes instead of turning away from life's painful events. Look them in the eye and think about them often. By confronting the realities of death, illness, loss, and disappointment, you free yourself from false illusions and hopes. While here is your translation with some adjustments to avoid plagiarism while maintaining the meaning. Avoid negative and envious thoughts. Ingrain in your mind the ideals you should embrace, independent of what others do or say. Be true to your genuine aspirations, no matter what happens around you. Those who strive for a higher life in wisdom, who aim to live by their spiritual principles, must be ready for mockery and criticism. Many people lower their personal standards in an attempt to gain social acceptance and more comfort in life, only to end up bitter and resentful toward those who hold firm to their philosophical beliefs and refuse to compromise their spiritual ideals in their quest for self-improvement. Never live for these unfortunate souls. Have compassion for them while staying grounded in what you know is right. When you begin your spiritual progress, it's likely that the people around you will mock you and accuse you of arrogance. Your task is to behave with humility and stay true to your moral ideals. Stick to what you know deep in your heart is right. If you remain consistent, the same people who once mocked you will eventually admire you. But if you allow malicious opinions to make you waver in your goals, you'll commit a double mistake. Trying to please others is a dangerous trap. When we try to please others, we end up focused on things outside our control, losing sight of the purpose of our lives. Be content being a lover of wisdom, a seeker of truth. Return time and time again to what is essential and valuable. Don't try to appear wise to others. If you want to live a life of prudence, live it on your own terms and with your own perspective. Character matters more than reputation. Worrying and fearing are a waste of time and don't set a good example, especially when it comes to your reputation and influence. Why live in fear of things like whether you'll gain public recognition in your career or community, or if you'll receive the opportunities and rewards others get? Don't stress over things like whether people think poorly of you or that you're a nobody. Even if your reputation were important, you're not responsible for what others think of you. What difference does it really make for your character and well-being if you're in a favorable position or invited to fancy parties? None. So what disgrace is there in not being a power player or celebrity? And why should you worry about being a nobody when what matters is being someone in the areas of life you can control and where you can make a real difference? You might say, But without power and reputation, I won't be able to help my friends. It's true you won't be giving them money or access to power, but does anyone really expect that kind of help from you and not from someone else? How can they expect you to give what you don't have? Still, it would be foolish to have power and money and not share them with your friends if you can gain wealth and power while keeping your honor, loyalty to family, friends, principles, and self-respect. Tell me how to do that, and I'll do it. But if I have to sacrifice my personal integrity, it's ridiculous for you to encourage me. On the other hand, if you had to choose between a certain amount of money or having a loyal and honorable friend, what would you choose? It's better to help me become a good person than to push me into doing things that threaten my good character. And what about my duties to my country? Does that mean I need to make huge donations to charities or build extravagant buildings? Does it mean that? A steelworker doesn't make shoes, and a shoemaker doesn't make weapons. All you need to do is your part well. And if someone else does the same thing as you, it doesn't matter. Your contribution is just as valuable. What about my position in society, you ask? Any position you can hold while maintaining honor and staying true to your duties is fine. But if your desire to contribute to society compromises your moral responsibility, how can you truly serve your fellow citizens if you become an irresponsible scoundrel? It's better to be a good person and fulfill your obligations than to seek fame and power. Everything has a price. Someone might enjoy privileges, opportunities, or honors that you desire. If the privileges someone else has are good, delight in their enjoyment. It's a moment of prosperity for them. If the privileges are bad, don't worry about not having them. Remember, you'll never receive the same rewards as others unless you use the same methods and invest the same time they do. It's unreasonable to think we can gain rewards without being willing to pay the price. The person who wins at something has no real advantage over you, because they had to pay the price for the reward. It's always in our hands to decide whether or not we want to pay the price for life's rewards, and often, it's more beneficial to not pay it. The cost might require sacrificing our integrity. We could be forced to praise someone we don't respect. Embrace the will of nature and discover the will of nature. Study it, pay attention, and make the will of nature your own. It is revealed to us through experiences that are common to all. For example, if a neighbor's child breaks a bowl or something like that, we often say, "These things happen." But when it's your own bowl that breaks, you should respond the same way you would if it were someone else's. Now, apply this idea to more emotionally and materially significant matters. If someone else's child, spouse, or loved one dies, we can easily say, it's the circle of life. Death comes to all. There are things that are inevitable. But when it's our own child or loved one, we often lament, "Oh, how tragic I am." Transfer that feeling to your current circumstances and learn to accept events, even death, with intelligence. Self-mastery is the goal the divine will wants us to aim for. Evil does not naturally reside in the world, in events, or in people. Evil is the result of neglect, laziness, or distraction. It shows up when we lose sight of the true purpose of our lives. When we remember that our purpose is spiritual progress, we refocus on giving our best. This is how we achieve happiness. Value your mind, appreciate your heart, and remain true to your purpose. Think carefully before giving your mind to someone who may insult you. Consider what comes first, then what follows, and then act. Cultivate the habit of studying and examining a future action before taking it. Before you act, step back for a broader view so you don't act impulsively. Figure out what happens first, see where it leads, and then act based on what you've learned. When we act without prudence, we might start something with great enthusiasm, only to later pull back in shame when unforeseen or unwanted consequences appear. We end up regretting, thinking, "I should have done it differently." Let's say you want to win a medal at the Olympics. That's a great goal, but you must first understand what you're getting into. What does such a desire involve? What's the first step, and what will be required of you? What will follow from that? Will this course of action truly benefit you? If so, go for it. If you want to compete in the Olympics, you'll need to follow a strict program that pushes you to your limits. You'll have to adhere to very demanding rules, stick to a proper diet, forget about sweets and desserts, train diligently in any weather, and quit drinking. You'll have to follow a coach's instructions as if they were from a doctor, and even once you're competing, there's a strong chance you'll end up on the sidelines. You could injure an arm, twist your ankle, or fall into the mud, and after all that, you might fail. After considering all these possibilities, paying attention to everything that could happen and its consequences, if your determination remains firm, you need to exercise judgment. If overall you still think it's worthwhile, go ahead and compete in the Olympics with all your heart. When you look at things from a broader perspective, distinguish yourself from the dilettante, the person who only engages in things as long as they are easy or fun. Isn't that a shallow stance? Think carefully about your desires and commit fully. Otherwise, you'll be like a child who sometimes thinks they're a fighter, sometimes a soldier, other times a musician, and sometimes an actor in a tragedy. Unless we fully commit ourselves to our efforts, we'll be empty and superficial people, and we'll never develop our natural talents. We've all known people who, like monkeys, imitate anything that seems new and attention-grabbing at the moment, but soon after their enthusiasm and effort fade, and they abandon their projects as soon as they become too familiar or demanding. A lackluster spirit has no power. Hesitant efforts lead to hesitant results. People often rush into something head first without thinking. They might come across an exemplary figure like Euphrates and find inspiration to better themselves. That's fine, but before doing so, you must examine the true nature of your aspirations and measure them against your abilities. Clearly assess your strengths and weaknesses. Do you have what it takes to compete, to be a fighter? For example, being a fighter requires extraordinary strength in the shoulders, back, and thighs. You have the ability and physical agility to be among the best in this discipline. There's a difference between wanting to be a champion and doing something skillfully versus actually being one and doing it with mastered skill. Everyone is made for something different. Just as specific abilities are needed to succeed in a particular field, certain sacrifices are also required. Do you think you can keep overeating and drinking excessively? Do you think you can keep giving in to anger and frustration? No. If true wisdom is your goal and you're sincere, you'll have to work on yourself. You'll need to overcome harmful cravings and automatic habits. You'll have to think about who you associate with. Do your friends and companions uplift you with their influence, habits, values, and behavior, or do they reinforce your worst traits? The path of wisdom, like anything else, comes with a price. By following it, you may face ridicule and even lose in many aspects of public life, including your career, social standing, and legal positions. Once you've thoroughly examined what it takes to live a higher life, embark on it with full awareness. Make the necessary sacrifices that constitute the price of the most valuable goals: freedom, equanimity, and peace. However, if upon evaluating your temperament, you realize you are neither capable nor willing to follow this path, free yourself from self-deception and take a more realistic approach. If you try to be something you're not or strive for something beyond your reach, you'll end up as a sad dabbler, first attempting to be a prudent man, then a bureaucrat, followed by a politician, and ultimately a local leader. These roles are inconsistent. You can't head off in endless directions, no matter how attractive, and still live a full and integrated life. You can only be one person, good or bad. You have two basic choices. Either you develop your reason, staying true to the truth, or you seek external goods. The choice is entirely yours. You can apply your talents to inner work or get lost in external pursuits. Be a wise person or follow the worn paths of mediocrity. Our relationships with others reveal our duties. You're not an isolated entity. You are a unique and irreplaceable part of the cosmos. Don't forget this. You are an essential piece in the human puzzle. We are all part of a vast and intricately organized human community. So, where do you fit into this web of humanity? Who are you obligated to? Seek to understand what your obligations are and what your relationships with others entail. Recognizing natural relationships and identifying duties helps define your place in the cosmic order. Duties arise naturally from relationships as fundamental as family, neighborhood, workplace, and state or nation. You should regularly reflect on your roles: mother, father, son, daughter, neighbor, citizen, leader, and the duties they bring. Once you know who you are and who you're connected to, you'll know what to do. If a man is your father, for example, he has certain emotional and practical responsibilities. The fact that he is your father implies a fundamental and lasting bond between the two of you. However, suppose he's not a good father. Maybe he's foolish, ignorant, rude, or holds very different views than you. Does nature always give us the ideal father, or even just a good father? When it comes to the fundamental duty of being a child, his character, personality, and habits are secondary. The divine order does not design people or circumstances to our liking. Whether you like it or not, that man is your father, and you must fulfill your filial duties. Let's say you have a brother who treats you badly. Does that matter? The moral imperative to recognize and uphold your fundamental duties to him or her remains. Don't focus on what they do. Focus on following your higher purpose. Your purpose should seek harmony with nature because that is the true path to freedom. Let others act as they will. It's beyond your control, and therefore, not your concern. Understand that nature as a whole is ordered according to reason, but not everything in nature is reasonable. When you put effort into acting wisely and prudently, trying to align your intentions and actions with the divine will, you won't feel like a victim of others' words or actions. In the worst case, those words or actions will seem amusing or pitiable, except in cases of physical mistreatment. Others can't hurt you unless you allow them to, and this remains true even if that person is your father, brother, sister, teacher, or boss. Don't allow yourself to be hurt, and they won't harm you. People often deceive themselves by thinking that freedom means doing what feels good or what promotes our well-being and peace of mind. The truth is, anyone who lets their reason be subordinated to the moment's feeling is actually a slave to their desires and aversions. They are poorly prepared to act with effectiveness and nobility when unexpected challenges arise, which inevitably happens. True freedom demands a lot from us. Only when we discover and understand our fundamental relationships and enthusiastically fulfill our duties will true happiness, what everyone aspires to, become possible. The essence of happiness lies first and foremost in holding the right opinions and attitudes about the absolute. Remember that the divine order is intelligent and fundamentally good. Life is not a series of random, meaningless events, but a whole, ordered, and elegant system that follows comprehensible laws. Divine will exists and governs the universe with justice and kindness, even though it may not always seem that way if we only look at the surface of things. The universe we live in is the best possible one. Resolve to expect justice, goodness, and order, and they will gradually reveal themselves in all your affairs. Trust that there is a divine intelligence whose intentions guide the universe. Make it your ultimate goal to govern your life according to the will of the divine order. When you align your intentions and actions with the divine order, you will not feel overwhelmed, helpless, confused, or resentful of the circumstances in your life. You will feel strong and secure. Faithfulness is not blind belief. It means consistently practicing the principle of avoiding things beyond our control and allowing them to be resolved according to the natural system of responsibilities. Stop trying to anticipate or control events. Instead, accept them with grace and wisdom. It's impossible to stay true to an ordered purpose if you imagine that things outside your control are inherently good or bad. When this happens, you automatically fall into the habit of blaming external factors for our life's luck, leading to a negative spiral of envy, discord, displeasure, anger, and resentment. By nature, all creatures reject things that will harm them and seek and admire those that seem good and beneficial. The second aspect of faithfulness is the importance of observing the customs of our family, our country, and our local community with prudence. Participate in the rituals of your community with a pure heart, free from greed or extravagance. By doing so, you align yourself with the spiritual order of your people and promote the essential aspirations of humanity. Faithfulness is the antidote to bitterness and confusion, and it gives us the conviction that we are ready for whatever divine will has in store for us. We must aim to see the world as an integrated whole, faithfully align our entire being with the highest good, and adopt the will of nature as if it were our own. Events in themselves are impersonal and indifferent. When contemplating the future, remember that all situations unfold as they do, regardless of how they make us feel. Our hopes and fears influence us, not the events themselves. Indisciplined people, driven by their likes and dislikes, are always looking for signs to build or reinforce their hasty opinions. But events themselves are impersonal. Wise people, however, can and should respond to these events in a beneficial way, rather than personalizing a situation as my victory or my bitter misfortune, and making harsh conclusions about themselves or human nature. Look for a way to make good use of certain aspects of the event. Is there some hidden benefit within that event that a trained eye can discern? Pay attention. Be a detective. Perhaps you'll uncover a lesson you can apply to a similar situation in the future. No event, no matter how terrible it may seem, prevents us from seeking that hidden opportunity. Failing to do so is a failure of imagination. However, finding the opportunity sometimes requires a lot of courage because most people around you will persist in interpreting events in the simplest terms: success or failure, good or bad, right or wrong. These polarizing, oversimplified categories obscure other, more relative and useful interpretations of events, which are far more advantageous and interesting. The prudent man knows that projecting his hopes and fears onto the future is futile. It only leads to melodramatic mental representations and wasted time. At the same time, one should not adopt a passive attitude toward the future and what it holds. Limiting yourself to doing nothing doesn't avoid risk, it increases it. There is a time to plan prudently and make provisions for the coming situations. Preparing properly for the future involves adopting good personal habits. This is done by actively pursuing the good in all aspects of daily life and regularly examining the reasons behind your actions to ensure they are free from the constraints of fear, greed, and laziness. If you do this, external events will no longer shake you. Instead of fooling yourself into thinking you can control external events, focus on your intentions. If prayer or meditation helps, use them. but seek divine guidance only when your own reasoning doesn't offer a solution and when you've exhausted other methods. What is a good event? What is a bad one? These concepts don't really exist. A good person is someone who finds peace after consistently asking, what is the right thing to do? Never suppress a generous impulse. Act on it without hesitation, especially when a friend is in need. Don't overthink the potential issues or dangers. Just let reason guide you and you'll be safe. Your duty is to help friends in times of need. Clearly define who you want to become. Who do you really want to be? What kind of person do you wish to be? What are your personal ideals? Who do you admire and which of their qualities would you like to adopt? It's time to stop being idle if you truly want to be extraordinary. If you want wisdom, you must explicitly identify the kind of person you want to be. If you keep a journal, write down who you're striving to become, so you can use this self-definition as a reference. Describe the behavior you want to embody, so you can notice it both when you're alone and with others. Speak only with good intentions. There's a lot of focus on the moral significance of actions and their consequences. Those who aspire to a higher life also recognize the often overlooked moral power of words. One of the clearest signs of moral life is speaking correctly. Perfecting your speech is a cornerstone of any spiritual program. Above all, think before you speak to ensure you're speaking with good intentions. Speaking recklessly is a disrespect to others. Speaking thoughtlessly is disrespectful to yourself. Many feel compelled to express every thought or feeling that crosses their mind. They spill their mental contents without considering the consequences. This is dangerous both practically and morally. If we gossip about every idea that comes to mind, big or small, we can easily waste valuable insights in casual conversation. Speaking carelessly is like driving a car without control, bound to end up in a ditch. When necessary, stay silent or speak moderately. Speech itself isn't inherently bad, but it's often used carelessly, so stay alert. Frivolous talk is harmful. It's also inappropriate to be a chatterbox. Enter discussions when a social or professional situation calls for it, but be cautious, ensuring the spirit and purpose of the conversation, along with its content, remain worthwhile. Chit-chat is seductive, but don't let it trap you. You don't have to stick to elevated or philosophical topics all the time, but be mindful that idle chatter disguised as worthwhile discussion doesn't erode your higher purpose. When we talk nonsense about trivial things, we ourselves become trivial. Our attention becomes absorbed in meaningless things, and we become what we focus on. We become petty when we engage in conversations about others, especially avoiding accusations, praise, or comparisons. If you notice a conversation drifting into pointless chatter, try to steer it subtly back to more constructive topics. However, if you're around indifferent strangers, you can simply remain silent. Keep your good spirits and enjoy laughter when appropriate, but avoid the casual, shallow laughter that often degenerates into vulgarity or negativity. Laugh with others, but never at them. Always avoid making idle promises. Steer clear of popular entertainment. Almost everything accepted as legitimate entertainment is inferior or ridiculous, and often preys on people's weaknesses. Avoid being part of the crowd indulging in such distractions. Life is too short, and you have important things to do. Be mindful of the images and ideas you allow in your mind. If you don't choose what thoughts and images you expose yourself to, someone else will, and their motives may not be the best. The easiest thing in the world is to slide unnoticed into vulgarity, but this doesn't have to happen. If you decide not to waste your time and attention on nonsense, you'll be more focused. Be careful with the people you associate with. Regardless of what others claim, they might not be living by spiritual values. Watch who you spend time with. We tend to adopt the habits of those we associate with without realizing it. We unconsciously take on their interests, opinions, values, and ways of interpreting events. Many people, even with good intentions, still influence you negatively because they can't distinguish between what's worthwhile and what's not. Just because someone is kind to you doesn't mean you should spend time with them. Just because they seek you out and show interest in you and your affairs doesn't mean you should engage with them. Be selective when making new friends, colleagues, and neighbors. People can influence your destiny. The world is full of pleasant and talented individuals. The key is to surround yourself with people who uplift you, whose presence brings out the best in you. But remember, moral influence works both ways, so we must ensure that our thoughts, words, and actions have a positive impact on those we interact with. The true test of personal excellence lies in paying attention to the small details of behavior, which we often neglect. We should regularly ask ourselves, how are my thoughts, words, and actions affecting my friends, my spouse, my neighbor, my children, my boss, my employees, and my fellow citizens? Am I contributing to the spiritual growth of those I come into contact with? Make it your mission to bring out the best in others by leading by example. Take care of your body, but don't flaunt it. Respect your body's needs and give it the best care to promote health and well-being. Provide it with everything it requires, including nutritious food, proper clothing, and a warm, comfortable home. However, don't use your body as a means for display or luxury. Stand by your reputation and intentions, and don't fear insults or criticism. Only the morally weak feel compelled to defend themselves. Let the quality of your actions speak for you. We cannot control how others perceive us, and striving to do so only degrades our character. So if someone tells you that a certain person has been criticizing you, don't bother defending yourself. Just smile and say, I suppose that person doesn't know my other flaws, otherwise they would have mentioned those as well. Behave with dignity, wherever you are, always acting as if you are a distinguished person. While many people's behavior is influenced by what's happening around them, stay true to a higher level. Try to avoid parties or events where revelry and mindless fun are the norm. If you find yourself at a public event, remain grounded in your goals and ideals. Bring your personal ideas to life by emulating exemplary figures. One of the quickest ways to elevate your character is to find exemplary people worth emulating. Incorporate the traits of those you admire. Adopt their manners, speech, and behavior as if they were your own. There's nothing fake about it. We all carry within us the seeds of greatness, but we need a role model to help those seeds grow. Knowing someone of great merit doesn't mean you should be overly intimidated. People are just people, despite their talent or influence. Practice discretion in conversation. No one enjoys the company of a bragger, so don't burden others with enthusiastic tales of your achievements. No one really cares much about your battles and adventures, and if they indulge you for a while, it's just out of politeness. Talking frequently and excessively about your accomplishments is tiring and pretentious. You don't need to be the class clown, nor should you resort to other unrefined methods to convince others that you're clever, sophisticated, or friendly. Avoid aggressive, easy, or flashy speech at all costs, as it diminishes the esteem people have for you. Many people tailor their speech to impress, trying to add weight to what they say or make others uncomfortable. Refuse to engage in such conversations. If the people around you begin speaking inappropriately, leave, or at least remain silent, letting the seriousness of your gaze show that their language offends you. Prefer lasting satisfaction over immediate gratification. Let reason reign supreme. Cultivate the habit of deliberation. Practice the art of testing whether something is truly good or not. Learn to wait and evaluate, instead of always reacting on instinct. Spontaneity is not a virtue in itself. When faced with the promise of pleasure, take a step back and give yourself some time before jumping into it without thought. Calm yourself and consider, does this pleasure offer me momentary delight or real lasting satisfaction? The quality of life and the kind of person we become change significantly when we learn to distinguish between cheap emotions and meaningful, lasting rewards. If, after considering the pleasure at hand, you realize that indulging in it will lead to regret, abstain, and enjoy the mastery over yourself. Reinforce the triumph of your character, and you will grow stronger. Adopt a firm attitude once you've deliberated and decided that a course of action is right. Never doubt your judgment. There may be people who misunderstand your intentions and criticize you, but if you believe you are acting correctly, you have nothing to fear. Stand firm. Don't be cowardly or evasive. Courtesy and logic each have their place. A proposition being either black or white works well in deductive reasoning, but not as much in a conversation between friends. Likewise, at a banquet, it might make sense to serve yourself the largest portion of food if you're truly hungry, but it's considered rude when sharing a table with others. Pay attention, not just to how much your body appreciates the delicacies offered, but also to the importance of good manners and personal refinement. Self-mastery depends on honesty with yourself. You must know who you are and what you're capable of. Nothing great is created in an instant. The same goes for the development of our talents and abilities. We're always learning and always growing. The right approach is to accept challenges, as this is how we progress to the next level in our intellectual, physical, or moral development. That said, don't be deceived. If you try to be someone you're not, you end up diminishing your true self and fail to grow in areas where you could naturally stand out. In the grand scheme of things, everyone has their calling. Discover yours and follow it faithfully. Guard your reasoning just like when you're walking. You try not to step on a nail or twist your ankle. You should be equally cautious not to harm the supreme faculty of the mind. A virtuous life depends primarily on reason. If you protect reason, it will protect you. Observe caution and moderation. Through vigilance, we can anticipate the tendency toward excess. A person's possessions should align with the needs of their body, just as shoes should fit the feet. Without moral preparation, we can be led to excess. For example, many people are tempted to buy exotic high-end shoes when what they truly need is a pair of comfortable, durable shoes in their size. Once we slip, even just a little, into a lack of moderation, we gain momentum and can get lost in whims. Decency and inner beauty are more valuable than outer appearance. Women bear the weight of society's attention to their looks from a young age. Men compliment them, or they're evaluated solely based on their outward appearance. Unfortunately, this can lead a woman to feel like her worth is only in giving pleasure to men, and her true inner gifts atrophy. She may feel compelled to spend much time and effort enhancing her outer beauty and changing her natural self to please others. Sadly, many people, both men and women, focus entirely on their physical appearance and the impression they make on others. Those who seek wisdom come to understand that although the world rewards superficial things like looks or the family you come from, what truly matters is who we are inside and who we are becoming. Reason is more important than the body. Those who lack moral preparation spend an excessive amount of time on their bodies. Tend to your bodily functions, but give the utmost attention to the care and development of reason, for through reason we understand the laws of nature. Mistreatment stems from false impressions. If someone disrespects you or speaks ill of you, remember that they're doing so based on their own perception, thinking they're right. It's unrealistic to expect that person to see you as you see yourself. The person who draws conclusions based on false impressions is the one who is truly hurt, not you, because they are the ones who are misguided. Once you understand this clearly, it becomes harder to feel insulted by others. Even if someone slanders you, you can tell yourself, this person thinks that way, but it's only their impression. Everything has two handles. All situations have two perspectives, one you can carry and one you cannot. For example, if your sibling treats you poorly, don't grab the situation by the handle of pain or injustice, or you won't be able to bear it, and it will embitter you. Instead, grab it by the handle of family ties. Focus on the fact that this is your brother or sister, someone you've grown up with, and therefore you share a lasting, unbreakable bond. By viewing the situation this way, you understand it properly and maintain balance. Clear thinking is vital. A prudent life is governed by reason. It's important to learn how to think clearly. Clear thinking is not a random task. It requires proper preparation. With clear thinking, we can direct our will, stay true to our authentic purpose, and recognize the connections to others and the duties those relationships bring. We should all learn to identify shallow, faulty thinking, study the legitimacy of inferences to avoid drawing conclusions without basis. Here are some examples of false logic. I'm wealthier than you, so I'm better than you. We constantly face such absurd statements, but they are utterly fallacious. The valid inference that could follow from wealth is something quite different. For example, if someone says, I'm richer than you, therefore I have more possessions or money than you, or I speak more persuasively than you, so I must be better than you, these conclusions are flawed. Just because I speak more convincingly doesn't mean my speeches are more effective than yours. Remember, character has nothing to do with wealth or persuasive speaking. Instead of just talking about being wise, focus on your actions. If you want to test your endurance, do it for yourself, not to impress others. Don't let your pride blind you. If you can meet your needs with minimal cost, that is a true measure of resilience. To live wisely, you need to free yourself from self-centeredness. Reflect on how much more resourceful and resilient the poor are when facing challenges. If you want to live simply, do it for your own well-being, not to impress others. Wisdom relies on self-awareness. Most people fail to see that both the help and harm we experience come from within. They focus on external factors caught up in appearances. A wise person, on the other hand, realizes that everything, good or bad, comes from within and doesn't blame others. They don't feel compelled to convince others of their worth or importance. When they face challenges, they look inward. When praised, they smile without being moved. When slandered, they don't feel the need to defend themselves but focus on their actions instead. A person who is wise knows moderation in all things. They understand that seeming ignorant or simple is not something that concerns them. They focus on self-regulation and directing their desires toward what matters. Living wisely is more important than simply knowing about wisdom. If someone tries to impress you by claiming they understand the works of great thinkers, remember, what matters is not just talking about complex ideas. The key is understanding the nature of things and aligning your actions and intentions with this understanding. There's a big difference between saying valuable things and doing them. Don't put too much weight on book knowledge. Pay attention to the actions of those whose lives reflect the principles they speak about. Start by learning how to apply general principles in specific situations. For instance, the principle that you should never lie. The next step is to understand why that principle is true, like the reasons behind why lying is harmful. The third step connects the first two by showing why these reasons are enough to justify the principle. While the second and third steps are valuable, the first is the most important. It's easy to talk about why lying is wrong, but the real test is living by these principles. Now is the time to take your ideals seriously. Once you've identified the spiritual principles you want to follow, live by them as though they are laws. Don't worry about whether others share your beliefs. How much longer will you wait to be the person you really want to be? Your nobler self cannot wait any longer. Start applying your principles now. No more excuses or delays. This is your life. The sooner you start your spiritual journey, the happier you'll be. The longer you wait, the more vulnerable you'll become to mediocrity, and you'll feel ashamed and regretful because you know you're capable of more. From this moment on, promise to stop disappointing yourself. Separate yourself from the crowd. Choose to be extraordinary, and do what you must do now.